Man, the 90s. Where do we go from here? All right, check 1, 2, 3. Hey, welcome back. Thank you for watching. Man, honestly, I was like trying to figure out what is the next step in my musical journey for this series, because the 90s were so packed full of so many bands and so much music. I was really struggling with like, what am I going to talk about next? Like, which direction do I go? And I stumbled across a CD that kind of blew my mind just in terms of the lineup on this CD and when it came out and what that meant to me personally. In 1997, this CD came out, the Ozzfest. Look at that. Whoa. The first Ozzfest CD. Look at that. Ozzy. Yeah. Okay, that's enough. I remember buying the CD, and I also had the video cassette, so I would watch these videos over and over again. Now, this concert was recorded in 1996, but I was looking at the lineup on this CD, and I was very surprised. So what I'm going to do for this episode is just go down the lineup of this CD, talk about the bands that are on it, talk about where I was at the time and where the heavy metal or extreme metal culture was going at that time as well. So when I look at this CD compilation, what it does is it documented the present, what was happening at the time. It connected me to the past and bands that I kind of missed or wasn't like really into. And it also showed me my personal future in the years to come, the bands that I would listen to, the kind of underground punk and hardcore world that I would enter in just a year or two later. So first off, it documented the present, what was going on in the metal community at the time, what was popular in the mid 90s and late 90s. So you have new metal bands like Cold Chamber, and Power Man 5000. Yeah, that's what was going on at the time, so it makes sense that they were on this compilation. And I kind of like those songs. They didn't really last. Like, I don't listen to those songs much anymore, but at the time I was like, okay, these are heavy and it's a little different and they're kind of wacky and goofy. I don't know. It was like, but it's what was happening at the time. So the next band I'm going to talk about is Fear Factory. I don't know how many times I've listened to Fear Factory's Demanufacture album. It is easily one of my top 10 albums of all time, especially with heavy music, extreme music. I've listened to it hundreds of times. I still listen to it. It's dominated my musical life for like decades. So it's hard to describe it too. It's kind of industrial metal. It's like, I call it Terminator metal. It sounds like a machine. I don't think it sounds like anything else. It sounds like mechanized warfare set to music. I love it. I will always love it. And the singer is probably one of my 3 favorite vocalists of all time. It's Burton C. Bell, Fear Factory, Phil in Pantera, and Scott Vogel with Buried Alive and eventually Terror. But we'll talk about Buried Alive in another episode. Just a little bit more about Fear Factory. They were on a label, Roadrunner Records, and Roadrunner dominated the 90s. I could do a whole video just on the Roadrunner era, and maybe I will, but you're talking about bands like Death, Suffocation, Biohazard, Life of Agony, a band we're going to talk about in a second, Sepultura. All of that to say, they were one of the critical record labels in the 90s as far as extreme heavy music went. And they were representing quite a few bands on this compilation. Next, I'm going to talk about this thing called Neurosis. I don't know how much time I need to spend on this other than just to say, I don't know what they are. I don't know who they are, but man, I could not look away from the screen when I watched this video. I do remember thinking, I have no idea what this is. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if it's metal. I don't know if it's hardcore. I don't know what it is. I was kind of scared and like confused but I couldn't look away. It was truly mesmerizing. It was super slow, and these guys look so intense, and I don't know what to say. Listen to it. I mean, what is that? I don't know, but it's great. Now, Neurosis, at the time, I would definitely consider they were like a more underground band. They're not going to be played on MTV or the radio. Okay, this is like, and maybe in general, the Ozzfest CD is kind of this moment the underground was rising and people are paying more attention to these underground bands. As far as I'm concerned, where I was at that time, that's how it felt, me listening to this CD and discovering these weird bands that I would have never heard otherwise. So Biohazard was also on this Ozzfest CD. They had been around for a while before this, obviously, and I covered them in my last episode. So they were still relevant at this time and they sounded great. Now we're going to get to Sepultura. The song that they put on the Ozzfest album is called Attitude, which is from their album Roots.
Come on, man. Show me your attitude.
Now, I had been aware of Sepultura before the Ozzfest CD, so I was a huge fan of their Chaos AD album. Chaos AD is another one of those kind of top 10 records as far as the importance of it in my life. I listened to it a lot. That was my first Sepultura record. Sepultura was already legendary by the time Ozzfest came out. In fact, the Roots album was a kind of a shift in direction for them sound-wise. I still liked it, but I was much more of like the Chaos AD era fan of Sepultura. There was a little band called Slayer on Ozzfest as well. As I mentioned in a previous episode, I was late to the game on Slayer. So when they busted out Angel of Death on this Ozzfest CD, that slapped me in the mouth pretty hard. I was blown away by that because I probably had never heard Angel of Death. Amazingly as it seems, I had probably never heard Angel of Death before this. And it had been 10 years since they released Rain in Blood, probably the greatest thrash album of all time. But it just slipped by me because I was, not in that world yet. I had listened to Metallica and Megadeth because they were a little more popular. Anthrax did the Public Enemy Bring the Noise thing, but Slayer was kind of in the background for me. I mean, it's so weird to go through my musical history chronologically and just figure out what happened and how I discovered these bands, but that's the truth. In 1996, that was probably the first time I had heard a full Slayer song, which is embarrassing, but it is what it is. But then after that, I got into Slayer and got into all their albums. With Slayer, that connected me to the past. And also Ozzy Osbourne, obviously, he has a song on this compilation as well, as he should. He's playing a song called Perry Mason. Now, I remember when I was younger, I listened to Diary of a Madman by Ozzy Osbourne, and I remember loving Over the Mountain. That song was just super catchy, and he had a crazy voice, and so I knew about Ozzy. But this CD connected me to the past, so with bands like Slayer, Ozzy. But the last band I'm going to talk about on this compilation is called Earth Crisis. It's very difficult to overstate the importance of Earth Crisis in my personal music journey, especially, but also just the hardcore, punk, hardcore metal world in general, especially hardcore. I'm listening to this CD in 1997. I'm just about to enter this world of punk and hardcore shows. And I'm going to join a band, and I'm going to be a part of this new community, this new paradigm. I'm just on the cusp of entering into that. And Earth Crisis being on this compilation it's kind of crazy. Earth Crisis is a vegan, straight edge hardcore band. Straight edge is a subculture in a subculture. So it's basically punk and hardcore kids who abstain from using drugs and alcohol. There's more to it than that, but that's the basic gist. But I'm saying that to say just the fact that Earth Crisis, a vegan straight edge band, is on this metal compilation, Ozzfest, is just weird enough. I mean, when you think of metal, when you think of heavy metal in the 90s and 80s, you know, it's almost synonymous with drugs and alcohol. That's just how it was. So for them to put a band like Earth Crisis on this compilation, and for Ozzy to invite a band like that, it's just, I mean, I think it's awesome, but it's amazing, but it is strange. And it was strange for me to make those connections, be like, oh, what are these guys saying? Ah, interesting. Okay, that's new. They were on a label called Victory Records, and Victory Records, the albums of the late 90s just dominated my CD player, let's say. Bands like Buried Alive, All Out War, Earth Crisis, Strife, the list goes on. It's pretty much endless, but Earth Crisis, they were like the torch bearers of that scene. Earth Crisis was a band who infused metal and hardcore together. You could tell they loved hardcore just as much as they loved metal, like Sepultura, Chaos AD. So one more personal story about Earth Crisis for me. I remember getting this CD. It's All Out War by Earth Crisis. And I remember opening it up, and when you lifted up the CD, there was this long explanation of the word fetus in their song Stand By. Now, whatever your views are on abortion and reproductive rights, the point I'm making for this video is it was amazing to see a band take the time, make it a point to write this big, long explanation about moral and ethical issues that they're struggling with while writing this song. So again, for me personally, I was just about to enter into this world of punk and hardcore and really passionate people talking about all kinds of things, moral, ethical, spiritual. That was going to dominate what I listened to for years and years to come. And Earth Crisis was at the forefront of that. So for them to be on this compilation, it's totally critical to my musical journey. So thanks again for watching. I think this episode sets us up for the future. This is where I started distancing myself from the popular music of the day. So the MTV radio stuff, I started to venture way out from that and discover a new universe of music. So again, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next episode.